I found the first sign tucked between receipts in the glove box. A folded hotel invoice, room 311, 2 nights, paid in full. The date didn't match any trip I remembered my wife taking. Nora said she was visiting her sister that weekend. Said they needed sister time, wine and rom-coms and yoga classes. I didn't confront her. Not immediately. Instead, I said nothing, slid it back in place, and smiled like I didn't feel the ground shift beneath me. That night she came home humming, kissed my cheek, and told me my lasagna was better than anything they ate out. That was the moment I knew the life we'd built together wasn't shared anymore. It was hers, and I was just a background extra. The next day, I called in sick to work. I needed time. Not to cry. To think. I pulled up our shared calendar, cross-referenced her trips. Her alibis. One by one, I poked at the threads, and they began to fray. There were gaps. Too many overnights for conferences that never posted photos. Too many calls that dropped when I answered. I'd always trusted her. Too much, maybe. We'd been together 11 years. Married for 8. No kids. We were building up to that, or so I thought. Maybe she already knew there'd never be kids, not with me, at least. That night, I went to bed beside her, listening to her breathe. My hand hovered over her back for a second before pulling away. I watched her sleep like a stranger. I wondered if he watched her like this too. If she let him. I knew then this wasn't something I could forget or forgive until I knew everything. All of it. Who? When? How many lies? Because if I was going to lose the woman I loved, I'd do it with my eyes open. And when I saw the full picture, I'd make sure she'd never forget it. I started with her phone, not by unlocking it, but by watching how she used it. Nora had always kept it close, but lately it never left her hand. Even in the bathroom, she used to leave it charging on the nightstand. Now it was always face down. Silent. The password hadn't changed, but she added Face ID last month. Subtle. Quiet. But it meant something. So I bought a phone of my own. Identical model. Same apps. I studied it for days until I could navigate every feature with muscle memory. Then one evening, when she was soaking in the tub with a glass of red and her eyes closed, I walked into the bathroom like nothing was wrong. We talked. Laughed. Even. I placed my phone on the sink beside hers. Waited until her eyes were closed again. Switched them. I walked out with hers. Locked the door behind me. Sat down on the couch and opened the world she thought was hidden. What I found wasn't shocking, it was surgical. She'd labeled him K. No emoji. No last name. Just K. Their texts were clean. Deceivingly simple. But the kind of intimacy that bled between lines doesn't need punctuation. Miss you already. Next Friday, same room? You made me feel alive again. I felt the words like bruises on my ribs. I scrolled further. Photos. One of her in a hotel bathroom, just out of frame. Her hand on the mirror. Her reflection blurred. The timestamp. 1 hour after she said goodnight to me over text from her sister's house. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I didn't even move. I just read. Every message. Every timestamp. Every breath she took when I wasn't watching. I returned the phone before she noticed. She never looked up when I handed her a towel. You're sweet, she said, kissing my cheek. Thank you. I nodded. And that night, I started keeping my own secrets. She thought I didn't know, and I let her believe it. That was the most exhausting part, acting like I was still the man she thought I'd always be. Predictable, passive, but I wasn't anymore. Something had broken, and what replaced it was sharper, quiet, focused. I started documenting everything, not for court, for clarity, my own. I created a private folder titled, What Was Never Ours. Inside it, I placed screenshots, message transcripts, GPS logs from a simple tracking app when installed on her car's infotainment system, and notes. I wasn't building a case. I was building the truth. Something she'd never admit unless it was wrapped in undeniable evidence. A week later, she left town again. Work offsite, she called it. Just 2 nights. You know how these branding retreats go, team bonding, sticky notes, all that crap. I smiled, kissed her forehead, and offered to drop her at the train. She declined. Said a colleague was picking her up. I knew his name. I'd seen it in her messages. Kevin. I waited until she left. Gave it 4 hours. Then I drove. I didn't need to follow her. I already knew the hotel. Already had the reservation confirmation. She used our shared email and never deleted the auto-forwarded itinerary. Room 508. 2 nights. King Suite. I didn't plan to confront them. I just wanted to see it for myself. I waited across the street in a rented sedan. Watched them exit the car together. She looked like a different person. Hair curled. Laughing with her whole body. Wearing the red coat, she told me she gave to Goodwill. She kissed him before they reached the doors. Quick, practiced. My hands didn't shake. My eyes didn't blur. I snapped 3 photos. Time-stamped. Framed. Then I drove home. That night, I sat at the dining table alone. Opened a bottle of wine we'd saved for our anniversary. Poured a glass. And toasted. To the version of her that only existed when I wasn't looking. The day she returned, she brought me a souvenir mug from a gas station and a kiss that didn't taste like her. It was so productive, she said, setting her bag by the door. We did these team exercises where we had to write what we admired about each other. Totally awkward, but kinda sweet. I asked her what people wrote about her. She smiled. That I'm dependable. I almost laughed. That night, while she showered, I added the new photos to the folder. Labeled them with the location, time, her outfit, and the name of the hotel. I was building a story now, scene by scene. I didn't feel like a victim. I felt like an editor, slowly cutting away the lies. Over the next week, I gathered more. Voice recordings of her late-night phone calls. Cloud logs of her deleted texts. A backup of her calendar, including the recurring placeholder titled Wellness Session. She had blocked Kevin's number, then unblocked him 2 days later. I watched it happen through a sync backup app. Her guilt came in waves, but the desire always won. The final piece was her journal. I hadn't intended to read it, but she left it in the open one morning while I made coffee, its ribbon folded halfway through. The page was dated just 3 days prior. The entry began with, "I think I'm falling in love with him." My stomach dropped, not because of what she wrote, but because of what came next. "He sees me in a way that Andrew never has." Andrew. Me. I read it twice. Then again. Then I closed the journal, left it where I found it, and sipped my coffee as if nothing had happened. She came into the kitchen humming, kissed my cheek. "You okay?" "Perfect," I said. "You?" "Getting there." I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time, I saw her not as my wife, but as a stranger, wearing someone I used to love. I didn't confront her. Not yet. The moment would come, but it had to be right. Clean. Permanent. Instead, I planned. She was throwing a dinner next month for her close friends and coworkers. A casual thing, she called it. "Just people who've been part of my year," she said, already browsing Pinterest for table setups and playlist themes. I offered to help. Booked the catering. Even suggested we host it at our place instead of the restaurant she originally had in mind. "Really?" she asked, surprised. "That's actually kind of perfect." It was more than perfect. It was the stage. In the meantime, she kept pretending. She went to yoga classes she never attended. She replied to Kevin with fire she'd never shown me in years. I watched her rehearse smiles in the mirror before leaving the house. She was putting on a performance for the world, and I was going to make sure she got the applause she deserved. I created a slideshow. A short one. 10 slides. Each with one image or message. One undeniable truth. No names. No context needed. Just enough to shatter the illusion she kept selling. On the final slide, I added one sentence. "This is who you praised." The file was called Reflections. I loaded it onto a private cloud drive, set it to autoplay, and linked it to a QR code printed inside elegant little dinner place cards. Each guest would get one. No need to interrupt dinner. No need for drama. Just a quiet unveiling, right between dessert and goodbye. I rehearsed what I'd say if she begged, if she cried, if she screamed. But in every version of the scene, I stayed calm. Because this wasn't about rage. It was about truth. And there's nothing louder than silence paired with evidence. She wouldn't see it coming, but she'd feel it. For the rest of her life. As the dinner approached, Nora grew radiant with anticipation. She shopped for a new dress, practiced her little toast in the bathroom mirror, and rehearsed gratitude like she was accepting an award. "I just wanted to feel personal," she said one night. "Like everyone leaves knowing how much they matter to me." I watched her carefully. Her charm had layers, and each one was painted to hide the rot beneath. What fascinated me most was how easily she lived 2 lives. How she could laugh over dinner, then whisper to him from the guest bathroom while brushing her teeth. I knew her schedule down to the minute. Her private email, synced from an old iPad she never wiped. Her VPN habits. Even her photo stash hidden in a fake calculator app. And yet she never suspected me. Because I gave her nothing. No suspicion. No coldness. Just peace. The peace that comes before a landslide. I'd already printed the QR cards, small, tasteful, each tucked into a custom fold at every setting. I added a handwritten line beside each one. Scan me for a memory. It was the kind of vague curiosity no one could resist. I even made a backup plan, an autoplay loop on a tablet locked and placed beneath the serving tray. If someone missed the code, they'd see it scrolling on the way out. The night before the dinner, she curled into me in bed and said, "I'm really happy, you know. I feel like we're getting close again." I kissed her forehead. "Me too." She smiled. Fell asleep quickly. I stayed awake. My heart didn't pound. My breath stayed even. I was past pain, past anger, past love. All that was left was a kind of detached clarity. The kind that comes when you know tomorrow will change everything. I stared at the ceiling, counting the seconds between her breaths, wondering if she'd even recognize herself. In the reflection, I was about to hold up. The evening arrived wrapped in candlelight and curated charm. Our dining room never looked better. Linen runners, dimmed lights, a playlist of Nora's choosing humming in the background. The guests trickled in, toasting to friendship and the couple everyone envies. I poured wine, shook hands, accepted compliments I didn't earn. Nora floated through the space like a practiced host, touching arms, throwing laughter like glitter. She looked flawless, radiant, and utterly false. When dinner began, she stood for her toast. "This year has been transformative," she said, eyes glistening. "And I couldn't have survived it without the people in this room, and especially without Andrew." She glanced at me, warm and proud. "You've seen me at my worst and still believed in the best. I love you." Applause. Clinking glasses. A few quiet ahs. I raised my own glass, held her gaze, and said, "To truth." We sat. The entree was served, and as the plates were cleared, guests began to notice the little folded cards. Scan me for a memory. One by one, phones came out. QR codes lit screens. Faces changed. Forks paused midair. Brows furrowed. Nora kept smiling for a beat too long before realizing something was wrong. Her eyes darted from guest to guest. "What is it?" she asked. Amanda turned her phone toward her. On the screen was an image, Nora, wrapped in a towel, smirking at a mirror, time-stamped with a night she'd told us she was with family. "What is this?" Amanda asked. Others were scrolling. Some gasped. Others looked away. Kevin's name appeared in a message. A photo of a receipt. A text bubble. "I dream about you in our bed, even when I'm next to him." Nora's face drained. "Andrew," she whispered. "What did you do?" I stood, calmly. "I just gave them a memory." She lunged for the cards. "No, this is private. This isn't—" "No, Nora," I said, voice steady. "This is the truth you buried beneath all that wine and performance." Her boss stood. Her friend grabbed her coat. The room dissolved into slow chaos. Nora sat down hard, like her knees couldn't bear it. And just like that, the version of her they all believed in died. She didn't speak after they left. Not a word. The room, once filled with laughter and warmth, was now silent except for the faint hiss of the last candle burning down. Nora sat at the head of the table, eyes wide, lips parted, staring at her untouched wine glass like it might offer an explanation. I stood at the opposite end, arms folded, waiting for the moment she'd say something, anything. Instead, she looked up at me, finally, and whispered, "Why?" I walked toward her slowly, pulled out the chair beside her, and "Saturday, because you lied. Over and over. To me. To them. And you thought you'd never have to look in the mirror." Her face twisted, not in anger, shame, confusion, disbelief. "It was never serious," she said, reaching for the weakest excuse in the book. "I didn't even see him that often. Enough to forget who you were with," I said. "Enough to turn our life into a cover story." She started to cry then. Real tears. The kind that come when the mask is gone and only the wreckage remains. "I was lonely," she sobbed. "You never noticed me anymore." "I noticed everything," I said. "That was the problem." She reached for my hand. I didn't move. "Please," she said. "Don't let this be the end. Don't throw us away." "You already did," I said. "I'm just taking out the trash." She recoiled like I'd slapped her. Stood. Staggered toward the door. "Where are you going?" I asked. "I don't know," she said, grabbing her coat. "But I can't stay here tonight." "Then don't." She looked back once, hoping I'd call her back. I didn't. She left, and for the first time in months, the silence in our house felt honest. The next morning, the house smelled like extinguished candles and consequences. I walked through the mess alone, Empty glasses, napkins folded like regret, traces of a party that ended with the kind of truth you can't toast to. Nora hadn't come back. I wasn't surprised. She'd been calling, though. 12 missed calls. 3 voicemails I didn't bother playing. I sat at the dining table, where the slideshow had ended, and opened my laptop. I archived everything. The folder, the photos, the backups. Not out of pity, out of closure. The damage had already been done. Now it was time to move on. I texted my lawyer, proceed with the filing. No delays. His reply came within minutes, copy that. This will be clean. Nora finally texted at 11:24 a.m. We need to talk. I'm at Amanda's. Please don't do this. Please. I didn't answer. Instead, I went to the closet, pulled her remaining clothes into a suitcase, and left it by the door. That afternoon, Amanda texted me, not on Nora's behalf, but on her own. For what it's worth, I had no idea. I believed in her. We all did. So did I replied. That was the problem. That evening, I sat in the backyard with a drink and let the cold sink into my skin. It felt earned. The kind of chill that doesn't hurt. It reminds you you're still here. The sun dipped behind the fence, and I realized something. Nora had never loved the real me. Only the version who never noticed the lies. And now that he was gone, she had nothing left. 2 days passed before she came back. I heard the key rattle in the lock, slow and hesitant. She stepped inside like a stranger in her own life. No makeup, puffy eyes. Her hair tied back in a way that made her look smaller, younger. I just need to talk, she said, voice fragile. 5 minutes. I nodded, said nothing, and let her speak. I know there's no excuse, she began. I know what I did was selfish and cruel, but I need you to understand. I didn't set out to destroy us. I raised an eyebrow. You just tripped and fell into someone else's bed? She winced. I was drowning, and he noticed me. And I didn't? You stopped looking, she whispered. I leaned forward, keeping my tone level. You don't get to rewrite this. I was here. Every day. Every night. You just stopped showing up and blamed me for not noticing your ghost. Her lip quivered. I'm sorry. You're sorry because you were caught, I said. If that dinner never happened, you'd still be sneaking around, wouldn't you? She didn't answer. She didn't have to. I'll sign whatever papers you need, she said after a long pause. I won't fight. Good, I replied. Because the only thing worse than betrayal is a coward who tries to keep the wreckage as a souvenir. She walked to the door, suitcase still sitting untouched. Will you ever forgive me? She asked, hand on the knob. I met her eyes. I already have. That's how I know I'm done. She nodded, left, and as the door clicked shut, I didn't feel a void. I felt room to breathe. Weeks passed, not quickly, but cleanly. I filled the silence with order, clearing drawers, repainting the spare room, canceling services that once belonged to us. There was no heartbreak, just recalibration. The air inside the house shifted. Lighter. Honest. I didn't check her social media. I didn't ask mutual friends for updates. I didn't need to. Every time my mind wandered to her, it landed on one truth. She chose to gamble everything for something that couldn't even stand in daylight. That knowledge settled like armor over my chest. I had lunch with a friend, Eli, a former college roommate who always told me Nora was too smooth for the edges of real life. He'd been right. He didn't say, I told you so. Just raised a glass and said, you didn't break. You built. That stayed with me. At night, I slept without flinching, without wondering who she was texting, without feeling the phantom of her back turned away from me. I began writing again. Not about her. About beginnings. About clean cuts. About how betrayal doesn't define you. It reveals the part of you that refuses to be erased. I submitted a piece anonymously to an online journal, The Lie You Loved Me With. It got shared. Quietly. Then widely. A comment thread appeared beneath it. One stuck with me. I thought I was the only one who stared at someone and saw a stranger wearing their skin. Healing didn't arrive as a wave. It came in sips, slow, deliberate, earned. And by the time spring rolled in, I couldn't even remember what her perfume smelled like. Only the air that replaced it. Spring brought new rhythms, morning runs instead of shared breakfasts, fresh sheets on a bed no longer divided by secrets. I planted a small garden out back, something she always said she wanted but never actually touched. Tomatoes, basil, lavender. Real things that needed real care, not performance. One afternoon, while pulling weeds, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I almost ignored it. Then I saw the text. Please, Just coffee. 1 hour. Closure. Nora. I stared at it. Not with anger. Just curiosity. Closure? That had already happened. But something in me, the part that still believed in full circles, agreed. We met at a quiet cafe on the west end of town. She was already there when I arrived, sipping tea, I scanning the street like she expected me to vanish before sitting down. She stood, smiled softly. Thanks for coming. Let's keep it simple, I said, sliding into the chair. She nodded. I wanted to say I'm sorry. Not for what you already know, but for all the little ways I chipped away at us while pretending I wasn't. I stayed quiet. Let her talk. I thought I could manage both lives. Thought I could keep your love while chasing validation from someone else. But the truth is, I didn't just lie to you. I became someone I didn't even recognize. I looked at her. Really looked. The same face, but something behind the eyes was hollow now. Deflated. I hope you find peace, I said. But don't confuse regret for accountability. Saying sorry isn't the same as rebuilding what you set fire to. Her eyes shimmered. Are you with someone else? No, I said. But I'm with myself again. That's more than enough. We didn't hug. Didn't linger. She left first. I watched her walk away, this time not wondering where she was going. Because for the first time, it didn't matter. She was just someone I used to. Unravel for. I deleted her number that night. Not out of spite, out of necessity. The last thread had been cut, and I had no interest in tying it back together. The house had become mine again, but it no longer felt like a space she'd ever occupied. It felt reborn. I hung new art, removed the wedding photo from the hallway, replaced it with a minimalist print that simply read, "Begin again." The days unfolded without complication. I started volunteering at a local shelter on Saturdays. Not to fix anything, just to give where it mattered. People who didn't know my story, who didn't look at me like a man rebuilt from ashes. Just a name on the sign-in sheet. One day, while cleaning out a forgotten drawer, I found a handwritten note from years ago. Nora had scribbled it during our 3rd anniversary. I will never stop choosing you. I almost laughed. Not bitterly, just at the irony. I stared at it for a moment before tearing it in half, then again and again, until the words no longer touched. I threw the pieces into the fireplace and lit a match. Watched it all disappear in silence. That night, I wrote in my journal, the one I started after everything collapsed. One line, she promised to choose me. I just didn't know I'd be her backup plan. But I wasn't anymore. I had become something steadier. Someone who no longer measured love by what could be kept in secret. And as the flames died down, so did the last illusion of who she had been. Her name stopped coming up. In conversations. In dreams. In memory. People stopped asking, and I stopped remembering on purpose. The scar she left didn't sting anymore. It was just a shape in the background. A reminder I had healed. One evening, I got a message on LinkedIn. From him. Kevin. I hadn't expected it. I almost deleted it, but something made me open it. I don't expect a reply. I just want you to know she lied to me too. I thought she was leaving you. She said you were cruel, controlling, that you didn't care. I leaned back in my chair, reading the words again. I left my wife for her. She moved in with me for a month, then disappeared. No goodbye, no explanation. I lost my family, and she vanished. I didn't reply. What could I say? That we were both collateral damage in her performance? That we both handed her trust like glass, and she shattered it in silence? He didn't deserve pity, but he did deserve clarity. I forwarded him a photo, just one. The one from the party, where her entire world cracked in the glow of candlelight and whispers. No message attached. Just that. He never wrote back. I turned off my laptop and stepped outside. The sky was wide and clean. Stars visible above the rooftop line. I took a deep breath. No more noise. No more replays. Just the truth, resting quietly where it belonged. She hadn't broken me. She'd revealed me. And I liked who I saw. I didn't plan the public exposure to be cruel. I planned it to be honest. But I underestimated just how far the ripples would travel. Someone at the dinner, maybe Amanda, maybe her coworker, had recorded the moment the guest scanned those QR codes. The room's silence. Nora's face. My words. It leaked. First as whispers in group chats. Then as a story thread on a community forum titled, "The Wildest Dinner Party I've Ever Attended." No names. No location. But it was real enough to spread. People filled in the blanks faster than I could have imagined. A local podcast picked it up, used the anonymous submission, and spun it into an episode called uninvited truth. Within a week, it hit 30,000 listens. In Nora, she vanished again. Not literally. She was still in town, but her name quietly slipped off a nonprofit board. A few brand partnerships removed her profile from their websites. Her curated online presence shifted from motivational posts to silence. And while her life shrank, mine expanded. Friends who had stayed quiet finally spoke up. I always had a weird feeling, one of them admitted. She was too polished. Amanda sent me a message I didn't expect. I owe you an apology. I believed her performance, not your reality. I didn't respond for 2 days. Then I sent back. So did I. That night, I walked past a bookstore and saw a journal with the phrase, "Tell it anyway," embossed on the cover. I bought it, not because I needed it, because it reminded me of the one thing betrayal fears most. A man who won't stay quiet, not for revenge, but for release. Revenge was never the goal. Not truly. What I wanted, what I planned, was a reckoning wrapped in calm. Not fire, not fury. Just undeniable, irreversible clarity. I waited until the dust settled, until the silence around Nora had turned into whispers that followed her like shadows. Then I made my final move. Not petty, strategic. The house was still in both our names. She'd left it behind like a scene she didn't want to revisit, assuming I'd either sell it or leave it frozen in our past. But I didn't. I legally petitioned to have her name removed. Quietly, efficiently. She never contested it. Maybe she was too embarrassed, too tired. Or maybe she understood that the walls no longer belonged to the woman who lied inside them. Once the deed was cleared, I renovated one last room. The office she once called her creative cave. I turned it into a reading room. Light oak shelves, clean walls, a single quote framed above the desk. You never really know someone until they lie to your face and smile. My lawyer sent her the final document. She signed. No note. No goodbye. That night, I burned the last envelope of evidence. Not out of forgiveness, out of freedom. I didn't need to carry it anymore. The truth had done its job. My garden bloomed that spring. I took a photo of it one morning, the light just right, the lavender tall. I captioned it. This is what grows when the rot is cleared. No tags, no names. But those who knew knew. She shattered what we had. I rebuilt something better. From the silence. And this time, it was mine alone.